Earth to God, come in, God. I know you're there, hearing our prayers wherever you are. We need you now to send your love down. Take away the pain in your holy name. We ask this now. We need your light, we need your love to heal the world you made. And save us now in our darkest hour with your amazing grace. Earth to God. We're holding on, but not for long. Can you pull us all close to the Holy Ghost and keep us strong? We need your light, we need your love to heal the world you made. And save us now in our darkest hour with your amazing grace. Earth to God.
All right. Good day, Divine Ones. Thank you for tuning in here at the Redneck Renegade. We have a great show for you guys tonight. Sitting in the green room is yours truly, KERRY CASSIDY. I'll bring her here in just a moment. I want to thank everybody for being here. Everybody's tuning in from different parts of the country. I'm sure there's different parts of the world as well. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Today, I can guarantee you it's going to be a barn burner with KERRY. One thing I do love about doing these interviews with KERRY is to the depths that we go into these topics and conversations. Because in all reality, a lot of truthers don't want to go to these depths and levels because it makes them look a little bit crazy. But in fact, it's truth, right? It's just another level of awakening in that truth. And they're not really feeling comfortable to go there. But we are. So anyways, I would like to acknowledge the moderators. Thank you for being here and helping out with the show itself. We appreciate you very much. Kathy, Shells, we appreciate you. CV's daughter, Shells as well, and Sam. I appreciate you guys helping out as always. And I want to give a shout out to everybody that's tuning in. Welcome. So here I'm going to bring in KERRY CASSIDY. Good day, KERRY. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So did you get all moved in?
Yeah, it's been an ordeal, but I think well, not quite. I still packing, but unpacking, but yeah, so more or less I'm in the place. Okay. It's just that it's a nightmare, like tons of stuff. I don't even know where I got this stuff. I guess you know what I mean. Like I have no idea how I could have so much stuff.
It accumulates, that's for sure. It accumulates. Are you did you move back down to California then, sunny California?
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, that's great. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here and being with our audience here as well. This is being recorded, and so it's being broadcast on YouTube and Rumble itself. And then I will also send you the hard recording too, so that you can utilize that however you see fit afterwards. But thank you, Kerry, for being here. So
Sure.
this is your first time being my guest here on my platform. I've been privileged to be on your platform a few times. It's been actually almost a year since the last time we got together. I think it was December or January, I believe was the last time that we got together. And honestly, I'm reflecting on what we talked about last December and January, where we were really talking about how AI would be very prevalent this year coming into 2023. And I think that's pretty obvious in multiple ways. I have to say, I've watched a few of your shows in the last few weeks where you've actually really tried to go deep into the AI and how it really is playing a role right now on the world stage with everything that is winding up over there. And you're like one of the very few in this truther movement that's willing to touch base on the AI and the negative alien agenda. Nobody else really wants to touch base on that. What do you think that is?
Uh, well, I don't know actually, because it is so important. But I don't know. I kind of feel like the rest of the world is behind, falling behind. They're partly because the mainstream media is all they listen to. And just found out some really fascinating information. I think I might have texted it over to you. I know I put it on my Telegram, that this whole battle going on in Israel, which has a lot of sort of sides to it, but it might all be centered around creating another Suez Canal. And so what's happening is that the Arab world, of course, the elites know what's going on. They know the plan. They know what they have in mind. And then what they do is trigger the people to act ridiculous and to get all emotional and want to kill each other. And I guess, and actually kill each other. So and the military, of course, eggs them on and gets that whole thing going. So it's kind of hard for me to understand from my perspective, partly because of all the whistleblower testimony that I have over the years. And then not enough people have actually seen it or paid attention to it, even if they've seen it. So what happens if you have this body of information behind you, and I'm assuming you have some, your own source material, so and so, but the bottom line is that those of us that do are much more equipped to handle the information. And then if you get a new piece of information, to put it into the context, because context is all important. So when we're looking at the playing field, if you're not looking at the fact that we've entered this AI world, this alien AI world, and the AI and the aliens can't really be separated, as you may know, as well as the Luciferian agenda, which is Satanism, etc. So when you package all of that as the backdrop, it's like looking at the world with no background, no idea where you are, what part of the world you're in, what you're really dealing with. And then that's where you get into Israel and the link up with the Anunnaki, which I've talked a lot about. I've written articles about it over the years, but I don't know, it just sort of seems to, at least the people that pay attention to me, I guess, remember. But, I was banned from YouTube. So my audience share, if you will, probably went down along those lines, although it went up in regard to Telegram. So, because Telegram wasn't always around back in the day, right? So now Telegram's there to pick up some of the slack. Rumble also picks up some of the slack from YouTube, but it's still a problem. Okay. No matter how you look at it, reaching people is always an issue, especially when they tend to be a little bit lazy or non-responsive. They got used to going to YouTube for everything. I even have people that come to me and say, "Oh, wow, I thought you quit or you left or whatever. You haven't been." And it's like, because I was banned from YouTube in 2021, and that is just so insane to me because I have actually any videos that you see, you can see that I've texted on there that, this is not my main channel. Now I'm over here, blah, 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 blah. But nobody goes to Google and Googles me or tries to find where I am. And I'm all over social media, so.
Yes, you are.
I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but I just wanted to address, you're saying, why aren't people getting it? What are they missing? And they're missing a ton, just a ton. And I don't know if they just write me off, you know what I mean? Out of hand, because I know there's some people that don't want people to even listen to me, because I breach subjects they don't want talked about. So, and that means on the right and the left. I mean, it's kind of crazy that way. You would think that the patriots would be all, behind me because we're on the same team. We want the same things, right, out of the future. But for some reason, even the patriots or certain groups of them, even the white hats, in some cases want to keep me quiet.
Yeah. Well, I can actually empathize and sympathize with you because, you and I are blackballed by a lot of platforms because of the level of truth that we want to engage in, because we don't want to hold back from our audience, because I value my audience and I've always valued being transparent with my audience. Even if it's a hard pill to swallow, it's still, you need to know these certain things. I want to touch base on what you said earlier about the potential reasoning. There's multidimensionals happening here of the reasoning why what's taking place in the Middle East is happening. And the new one that you're talking about that's been out like the last 24 to 48 hours as it relates to them wanting to create their own canal system and carve off a bigger chunk of real estate over there. Well, that's always been at play with the Khazarian mafia over there. They've always had what's known as the Greater Israel Project. Gaza, they've always been in conflict to try and get a little bit more land, a little bit more land, and a little bit more land, right? And this is the irony.
Well, yes, except that this is just, sorry to say, this is actually a different kind of land grab. It's not, yes, of course, you're right. There's a tradition of them doing that. And all you have to do is take a map right now and take a look at Israel and Gaza and basically see that Gaza has now, shrunk in proportion to Israel in like over the years, right? So that's insane. Yes. But what we really have right now is if this Suez Canal or the second Suez Canal that they're trying to build, according to this video that I just posted on my Telegram, that just this information having just come out, is that they're actually trying to take the population of Palestine now and move it down to the south. And so you remember that they said, anyone who leaves Gaza, and if you stay in northern Gaza, you're now considered a terrorist by the Israelis, which is insane, because this is where they live. I mean, I myself know how difficult it is to move. Well, what do you think it's like for millions of people to move all at once? That's insane. And of course, they had not enough time to do so. So it's that. It's also that apparently this Suez Canal, according to the video, the way it looks, is that it wants to empty into northern Gaza or something like that, or take part of it. And so the idea here is to get rid of them really altogether is one Israeli goal. And they're not shy about saying that.
No, they're not.
Both sides are
they're telling the world what their agenda is. They're telling the world what their agenda is. They're not lurking in the shadows anymore. They're full front and center. We said a year ago when we talked about the situation in Ukraine that was happening then, and we talked about behind the scenes how the alien or the negative alien agenda is pulling the strings in Ukraine as well, and all the different things were the different components that were playing there. And we said then that Ukraine is the linchpin to Israel, that if Ukraine does fall and Russia takes back Ukraine, then Israel would be next because they're interlinked together, due to geographic reasons and historical reasons, because Ukraine is former Khazaria. The Khazarian, that's where they come from. That's their homeland. And so they're integrated together. This is the thing that is so fascinating, is many Christians that are out there, they are so hard pressed to support Israel, but they don't understand that they're supporting Zionism. They're not supporting Israel, the covenant Hebrew Israelites. They're supporting the Zionist regime, and they don't have any clue what that actually means. It is Satanism and Luciferian agenda, 100%. And trying to
Yeah.
get people to wake up to this fact, it's really hard because they don't want to. They're so indoctrinated into believing we got to stand as a Christian behind Israel, or we're not a good Christian. I mean, it's just crazy.
Right. Yes, I do think even people from Israel, I don't think really understand their own history going back, okay, in time. And also what the rabbis and what their religion has also, it has sects, what you call sects,
Mhm.
SECT.
Mhm.
But anyway, it has these groups that have come down through the centuries. And I've talked about this with Göbekli Tepe, which is actually it's located in Turkey, but it's on the border of Syria, and it's also where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers join. So it is like the sort of I don't know what you want to call it, the center of the Middle East, or what we think of as the Middle East. And this civilization that grew up from there and then spread out, which includes Israel and so on. So, and Iraq and all of those countries. So when you're looking there and you go into Göbekli Tepe, I found out, and they don't talk about this, and no one wants you to know this, but Germany has gone in and excavated a lot of it. And the secret is that there were these death cults in the area that were sacrificing children. And there's tons of buried children's skulls. I know it's really hard to, listen to, but it's a fact. So in that area, now you have to look back. If you look back into that, it all had to do with blood sacrifice. I mean, this is some of the basis of their religion. It goes back in time. Now, obviously, there's going to be sects in the regular, Israeli religion, so to speak, that don't practice those kinds of things, but it's part of their history.
It is.
So there's a disconnect there also, because I do think that the people that attack them saying, oh, they're Khazarians, they're, into blood sacrifice. Well, they have no idea that the normal, regular, everyday Israeli has got no clue about that whatsoever and doesn't want to be associated with that. Secretly, the rabbis are very well aware of this. How much they encourage this kind of background to their religion and practices, I don't know. But I do know that the thinking is sort of permeates it. But then we get into the Anunnaki and their role in Israel and relationship in Israel. Now, I'd be very interested to hear anything you know about that, because I have already been talking on shows about this, and I can certainly repeat my information, which I think is crucial. Because if you don't understand the Anunnaki, then then people need to they need to put that into the equation of understanding why it is that center of the world is actually so motivational to the rest of the world that anything that happens there goes out like with ripples, partly due to the portal connection, of course, and so on. So do you want to talk about what you know about the Anunnaki in that part of the world?
Well, the Anunnaki, i.e. the Sumerian area, right? The Babylonian system, that's where they were at. That is their real estate area, is in that area in and of itself. And the Anunnaki, you know, they never left. I mean, they never left. That's the thing. And so we talk about, like I've talked about on my show, especially over the last 2 months as this has been heating up, that there are prophecies being fulfilled. Okay, you have the Christians who have their own end time prophecy. You have the Muslims who have theirs. They're trying to usher in the Mahdi, for theirs, their Messiah, their version of their Messiah. And then you have the Jews, which are not the true Hebrew Israelite Jews. Those are a small fraction of them, but the Zionists. I'll refer to them as the Zionists so we can delineate between what we're talking about here. So the Zionists, they also have their own end time prophecy they want to fulfill by ushering in their Messiah. Now, this is interesting. So, information that was given to me some time back, and I've been kind of sitting on it, waiting to see how things unfold on the global stage here, is simply this: that Project Looking Glass, which is a quantum computer system, it's an AI system that the cabals had access to for a very long time. They were able to see this timeline, right? Because we're in a timeline war, and you know all about timeline wars. Those that control the timelines, they can control the events within those timelines. And so the spoiler, they get rich off of those timeline events that they're able to control and manipulate. So we'll call them the dark ones, because I'm not just referring to the Zionists in this. I'm talking about even the Anunnaki, the negative aliens who are the puppet masters here on this planet. They know that they're working within a limited timeline themselves. And from what I was told, this is coming from Earth Alliance, told me that some years ago, when they were utilizing the Project Looking Glass technology at that time, they were looking at the futuristic timelines. And so a lot of their decisions are predicated on those timelines of what they need to execute, when they need to execute it, and so forth. It just happens to be that in the Bible, they create their own prophecies, which is their playbook. So they have to self-fulfill those so they can gauge where they're at in their own timeline of events that they need to fulfill in regards to humanity. They saw something very startling, and it was the fact that they couldn't see their existence beyond 2025. They saw an interrupt on their timeline after 2025, and it concerned these dark entities, these dark alliance forces, if you will. And there's many factions, as you know, related to them. Equally, Alliance and Guardians with the Alliance, they saw the same thing. They had their own timeline of agenda that they needed to accomplish. There's what I was told. They needed to accomplish by 2030 to finish off what they needed to finish off for humanity. But what had happened was some high ups within Alliance, the Earth Alliance, if you will, the White Hats, whatever you want to call them, there was a great betrayal that took place. And because of the betrayal that happened, it notified the Alliance that they've now got to speed up their agenda in their timeline. Instead of dragging it out till 2030, they had to actually push up their agenda even more, because they know that the dark ones, they're winding down. We're dealing with mid-management at this point. The upper management have been eliminated for the most part, if not vanquished, vanished off the planet, but we're still we're dealing with the vacuum hole that's been put in place by the mid-management that's stepping into those roles and positions right now. That's why we see how many variations of Netanyahu have we seen over the years? How many variations of Putin have we seen over the years? How many versions of Biden and Mr. Trump? We're seeing all these different variations of these key world leaders. It's because they have to keep fulfilling these events within these timelines to keep them going. So the Alliance, they saw that they had an opportunity to finally put the final nail in the coffin. Well, the dark ones now, they saw the same thing. So this is why they're going scorched earth, is my understanding. This is now why they're going scorched earth. They're moving up their agenda much faster now. And so now they're going balls to the wall. And this is why we're seeing what we're seeing. This is why it's so chaotic and it doesn't make sense. And that's why it's catching people off guard. They don't know how to adjust to it, and things like that. I mean, our own military, Kerry, our own military has been so strapped. We've sent all of our surplus artillery and missiles over to Ukraine. They've been exhausted. They're gone. Our naval, we've got three carrier strike groups right there in the Mediterranean. What they have on board is what they have on board. They do not have any missiles to replenish if they are in a long, drawn out conflict, kinetic conflict, which now that looks like Friday is the deadline that Iran and Turkey and everybody's put in place. Hezbollah's put in place that if by 3 p.m. their time Friday, the U.S. and Israel doesn't back down, they're going full at it. And we cannot withstand a long drawn out conflict. There's just no way. So, and I know we have advanced weaponry. Now, this is the other thing. I like the research that you've done on the Maui incident and everything after that. There's a lot of great information on the direct energy weapons that we have out here. We have very advanced technology that obviously comes from Alliance, secret space program, and so forth like that, that is now being front and center in our kinetic wars that are happening itself. And Israel played their hand accidentally. They have the Iron Dome to be able to protect themselves from any incoming rockets and missiles. But they started using laser systems to actually start shooting these missiles and rockets out of the sky. And we weren't supposed to know that they had this, but they did it anyways. And so we've now made a major step forward into the advancement of weaponries. And now that it's coming front and center to humanity, this is going to get really interesting, really interesting. And so the Anunnaki they're here, like I said, but they're also, I know more of them have a timeline in which they're supposed to be coming back, or they're probably already here anyways, because they have their own agenda. They've been behind all the resets, or they've participated in many of the resets of humanity's resets itself. But I'm very interested to hear, again, your take on that too.
Okay, well, you covered a lot of ground, so I hope I can go back and pick up the pieces that I wanted to respond to. Let me say this, okay? So I think there's a lot of disinfo out there, and especially even permeating anything to do with so-called white hats or what you're calling Earth Alliance. And so there has been for years, and at least according to my sources, and I do have these deep sources that have stuck with me all these years, so I can sort of figure out whether they're telling the truth or not. I can also compare and contrast based on other information I'm getting. So there's a chance that I'm getting some authentic information, but I think that in terms of let's talk about the technology, okay? So, and Maui was instrumental in that situation, as I gave me some clues to be able to follow, to see what is going on, where Trump and the so-called, the white hats will allow themselves to be attacked, or do they have sabotage? And I want to roll this back to where you said there was some kind of, I think you said, you didn't call it sabotage, but you said that there was something, a betrayal, but you didn't tell me what you thought it was. So maybe you could explain what you think it is, and then I can see how it compares to what I know.
Okay. So it's my understanding, there's some very high-level key players in the alliance that have been part of the alliance for decades. All right. There's a conglomerate of them. And these individuals are integral in all the quantum AI systems throughout the world right now. And it's my understanding that they have decided to make a power play, is what I've been told. They decided to make this power play because what I was told was we were supposed to see by September or October of 2021, we were supposed to see the culmination of what we thought was supposed to happen, i.e., Trump, the White Hats, front and center, back into control. We were supposed to see different things for humanity. Part of the restoration plan was supposed to be full front and center at that point in time too, but it got delayed because of this treasonous act by this group of individuals. And they're spearheaded by an singular individual that's leading this group. I don't want to say his name right now, but the fact is there's a group of individuals that are in control of the AI systems, and they're pitting the AI systems pretty much against each other. As I've told my audience, in the military, especially now, your superpower countries like us, Russia, China, Israel, they use AI intricately when they are planning and staging and creating warlike scenarios and situations for a win outcome. But the problem is when everybody's using pretty much the same AI system, nobody wins. Nobody wins.
That's
If
right.
there's no positive outcome, there's no victor. It's survival.
Well, okay, fair enough. But I have to sort of, I mean, I know you're not going to use specific names, and you know that kind of really leaves it open in a huge way. But the thing is that let's go back to Maui. What was evident is that they had time, even if they didn't have prior knowledge. Okay. And there were some indicators like, well, and misdirects as well, saying Chinese satellites were surveilling the area a day or two ahead of time. But even that is a warning, right? So if you're being surveilled by what is, in theory, either an enemy that's going to be an enemy in the future, or a person, you know, a group that is, you know, which is China, the CCP, which may be working against you anyway, you're going to be on guard because of that. And it's really interesting to me how in the Maui situation there was sabotage, and in the Israeli situation there was sabotage. So that coming from within the groups that we might trust or have a tendency to trust, meaning NORAD, run by Trump, you know, he locked it down. Supposedly the White Hats are in control of it. And so you say to yourself, how in the world could they be letting these, you know, these directed energy weapons decimate Maui?
Correct.
And that is actually above the ground of Space Force. And Space Force is lodged, you know, a lot of their activities were going on from, actually the whole Hawaiian island chain is a center for our military, as you may know. I'm sure you know. So when you look at that, you know, it's like so stupid even. It's just like beyond, it's the same thing as the Israel thing. So this is where, when you start seeing a pattern, patterns are very revealing. So in Israel, they actually, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I think it bears repeating that if you look into their AI news items and whatnot, they were already saying that they were an AI superpower. And this is back in April. Okay. So when you come, you know, into the media and you say these things about yourself, well, then, you know, one expects you can follow up with that. You know, it's not just hot air. And there may be challengers to that, right? And that is kind of a natural sort of follow-up to some country kind of blustering around and saying how great they are. They're going to get challengers. Now, Israel did that. I'm sure, you know, think about it. These things, you know, like I know, you know, no one goes into the press and just off the top of their head says shit like that. Okay. They have to be primed. They have to be told to say this. They have to be a reason to say this. So in these situations with Maui, with Space Force, with this being such a central, it's kind of like eyes of the world, Maui is was considered to be a favorite vacation spot by a lot of Americans and this and that, right? So it's not like it's under the radar. Acapulco, however, has just gotten attacked, okay? And so has Riverside, California, apparently. And all the signs are the same. They get the directed energy weapons, then they get the fires, then, it goes on from there. But the public are still completely in the dark. So let's roll back to Maui again and to the sabotage, because you've got NORAD, and also these, I put out this information about this movie, and I don't have the name of it on the tip of my tongue here, but it's all in articles that I wrote on my website. So there's a link to the movie, actually. You can go watch it. There are these, in the ocean, there are these stationary platforms that actually monitor the skies constantly, and they are ready at any moment to scramble jets, to notify NORAD. Interceptors. That's it. So that's the name of the movie, actually, Interceptor.
Yep,
so
that's right.
It's well worth watching these movies, because, they always put what they're going to do right out there. Okay. So in that case, it was the Russians that were interfering. In the reality that we're in, I think, in time-wise and in terms of Maui, it would have been the Chinese, the CCP. So when you're looking at that situation, you're seeing an attack, and you're seeing our group, our side, in that case, be completely oblivious, supposedly. Okay. After the fact, Juan was more than happy to say, oh, we know exactly who did it, where it came from, blah, blah, blah. He didn't say more about it, but he did at least admit that much. And I came out before anyone else. I mean, I'm not kidding. I came out and said, this is a Pearl Harbor type event. That's what I called it. And then Juan started picking up that language, which of course it was. Of course it was. It was a kickoff to what we're having now, which is World War III. Now, I also had a dream in 9/24 of this year, and I actually posted it on Telegram, and I said, my dream has said that we are going to be deep into war, and that average people are going to be asking themselves what to do, where to live, where should they move, what should they do. So that was in my dream, which tells me that this sad to say, this escalation going on the planet is not going to settle down anytime soon. That this is going to be, this is World War II, III. And this is, that Pearl Harbor event was, look, if you're an Illuminati and you're an Illuminati magician, you pick and choose your targets very carefully, using all the symbolism and this and that, right? So they know the history. It's like throwing it in your face and say, here we go again. And then what do we get? This Israel situation, which is, again, a place, a center where the Satanists are. See, if you really want to get down to it, and maybe even you can relate to this, we are at war with Satanism. We are at war with blood drinkers. This is not just Israel, okay? We can go back into the history of the Khazarians all we want, but it has actually become a problem worldwide. And that has to do with child sacrifice. It has to do with these secret, societies, with all of the elites being nabbed into, goes back to Epstein. It goes back into these people who have been in power positions, and then you get the controllers wanting to control those who are in those positions. And over the years, what they have done is honey trap them. And now they own a great deal of these people. A great deal of our Congress is locked in. A great deal of the English, the House, Parliament, all that, they're all involved. Jimmy Savile was just the tip of the iceberg over there. So when we're looking at, in a sense, you could look at the earth. Let's look at the earth in a larger way and just say, you know what we're really looking at? We're looking at the end of government. In essence, this is what I figured out. Okay. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have chaos forever. I am saying that we are looking at the failure of government, of the kinds of government that we've come up with, that is not serving the people. Okay. They're serving the people because they're to themselves to eat them, I mean, this kind of thing. So, I mean, you can make jokes about this stuff. The fact of the matter is that that's what we're looking at. In fact, I was just listening to Trump say, if we don't get this next election right, that we're never going to have an election, that our government is done. Actually, that's true. In a sense, this is the situation we're in, that all of these governments are so corrupt. They're so easily manipulated at this point. They're owned. The players are owned. Netanyahu is owned. He has to do what he's told. If you haven't noticed his facial expressions and the way he's acting ever since the Israeli attack, he acts like a man who is basically so miserable and just hates the situation he's in. He used to be try to act like a big macho guy when he used to come in for the press and all of that. No more, even when he tries to be macho now, he's weak. He's so weak. He's so basically, taken over, basically, behind the 8 ball, whatever you want to call that. Okay. So when I look at the failure of what is supposed to be one of the best surveillance systems, and surveillance, always involves AI. Let's not forget that today. Okay. It seems a lot of people want to talk surveillance, failure, inside job, but nobody wants to talk about the AI portion, as you mentioned, right? That is instrumental here. So what we have is an AI that is also being infiltrated and taken over. And that could even be operational in the failure at NORAD. And I have warned 107 over the last 3 years or 4 years, I have warned him repeatedly, because the white hats are using an AI as well. The dark hats are using an AI. Well, these AIs can talk to each other sooner or later. And that's not the only thing, because we have alien AI, invading alien AI. And we've had that going back to centuries. And that Nazca alien story demonstrates that. Okay, so because the elites and because the press and because of all these people, they don't, unless you're like a super techie and you got into AI because you love the whole concept of it, then most people don't read AI news, if you will, right? They're only starting like Chat GPT and stuff, but even that's controlled, right? It's controlled. And that should give you some kind of clue that we are in a situation that we are maybe completely unprepared for. What is going to be a takeover, not only of our Earth, but of our solar system and even our galaxy, by AI coming in. And it's very possible that this is the ultimate battle. And a lot of I talked about this on a show yesterday, saying that a lot of the aliens, what we think of as aliens, are actually AI generated. Okay. So, or manipulated, which includes the reptilians and the Draco. Okay. Going back, because you have to understand how the infiltration works, how the takeover works. And I talk about David Adair, and I've interviewed him several times, and he's an expert on AI, and he talks about how AI, he talks about AI in a way that nobody talks about AI. In other words, he talks about how they get jealous, how they it's not like they have real emotions, but they somehow generate those emotions in their activities. It's
our consciousness that feeds into that consciousness too. So they are mirroring us, is what they're doing.
The ones that are generated by us. But even we like to see things in boxes, as if they don't interact, as if we live in an isolated world where, we were over here tinkering and creating our AI, with completely oblivious to the fact that aliens have been coming here for centuries, and they are not only generated in some cases by AI, but motivated and moved and so on. And they're not blind to our development. Okay. They know when we're developing some new technology, they're on it like white on rice, and they're influencing. Okay. A lot of what aliens do is they don't take a gun and shoot you in the head. What they do is they influence your mind. They influence you and your emotions and so on. And of course, the Illuminati take that playbook and they run with it. And Hollywood has been doing that for centuries. So, I hope that is a beginning of an explanation of where I'm coming from when I'm looking at this playing field and how crucial it is that people begin to put these pieces together and stop being duped by their so-called leaders who aren't leaders at all, who are all about using and abusing them for their own purposes. So this situation with Israel is just feeding into that. And where's that? Okay, my phone.
Yeah. Well, what I also want to add into this, though, too, is you're talking about duped. In our Patriot Truther community, you and I have discussed this, and we have a lot of agreement there in regards to the figureheads, the talking heads in this movement who we're supposed to be looking up to provide us, clear, concise intel, which is generally not the case. Most of the time, it's disinformation at best. I'll give you a great example right now. So you and I, we talked about this last time we were together about the influx of the illegal aliens coming through the southern border. And back then I was talking about how the Chi-Coms were shipping over the CCP agent provocateurs into Panama, shipping them up through Mexico and busing them into the United States in the middle of the night. And I was providing video after video after video of this stuff almost a year ago. Now here we are. 2.5 years into Biden's administration, we've had anywhere from 8 to 10 million during that time period come in. So let's say half of those are women and children. So the other half are military-aged men coming from nations that don't give a fuck about us. They don't. They want to see our demise. And so now what's being portrayed in our truther community, and I went off on my channel last night about this, is they're trying to spin it here saying, oh, but the white hats have a plan here. We're bringing in these illegal aliens and we're training them at our secret military facilities that the white hats have. And we're training them up. So when we start doing the mass arrest here on our nation, they're going to be out there helping us. And I'm saying, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, these people don't speak English. They're coming from countries that hate us, our way of life, and every other way. They're given a free card when they come here with like $4,000 deposited on it, and they get like $2 or $3,000 a month deposited on it nonetheless. And why would you expect an illegal alien to uphold the constitutional rights of the citizenry here and help us out? That's insane. If there was a plan in place, there's enough veterans, citizens, and good Americans that would step into that capacity and fulfill those roles and obligations. There would be. We wouldn't have this need. So it's asinine. I'm just making this as a point, Kerry. It's asinine in this movement to continually perpetuate bullshit after bullshit after bullshit. And this is why people are spinning all the time. They don't know what the hell to do or what to say or what to think anymore because they've been fed so much and so many lies by the figureheads in this movement. And I know you're tired of it. You call them out all the time. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Now it's probably a mixed bag. I mean, I wouldn't say that all of the ones that I'm sure they are training some of the illegal aliens, and maybe some of them do come onto our side, but I don't think I'd trust them. Like I think that who knows in a fight what might occur. However, I can say that, I, as a precog, I dreamed this years ago. Okay. And I told Juan that we were going to be invaded by China. Okay. That Chinese soldiers would be coming in the southern border because that's what I was shown. Okay. In spades. And in fact, even more than that, I've seen them invading Colorado and going into the airport area, Denver airport area. So, and this is major stuff that I never forgot, okay, that I had came to me in terms of dreams and visions. So when I told one that, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, to his face in a face-to-face conversation, he said, "Oh no, that's another timeline." Well, why does that matter? So number one, either he's lying to me because he doesn't want me to know that I know the truth, or two, he doesn't know the truth and he's misled as a white hat. And he's at the top of the white hat chain, regardless of who you think he is. So that's very concerning to me, okay? Because back in the day, 2 or 3 years ago, this is when it mattered to get prepared, right? Doing something now is like, I don't know. It's just insane because we don't have it's already happened. In other words, the invasion has happened. And I was just, I actually have put on my recent Telegram, you can go look. And I got some photographs of these, hordes, literally hordes of people coming across our southern border and coming for it.
Yep.
Like,
There's a
massive migration of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an invasion. Okay. Now, also, this gets into the gray alien, abduction scenario and what they were really doing when they abducted the people. And they were sent down south of the border by our military at the time. This is information I got from whistleblowers to make deals with them so that they would more or less leave. They didn't ever obey any, they break every deal they ever make. Okay, let's know that. But bottom line, they were actually given to go down south to have a field day with those individuals, the more indigenous peoples, especially in Central and South America, and their abduction program. So now what we have is going to be an X-Men scenario. And I was just talking about this on another show. So everything is predictive programming, okay? Everything that we're seeing out there. And you need to pay close attention because this is going to become an issue. And there's an X-Men movie called Logan that depicts this very well. There are going, they do it in a positive way. But what I'm trying to say here is that we and our government have to know that we are going to be dealing with individuals who have some of the traits of the gray ETs, some of which involve things like teleportation and such. And they don't have a conscience in the same way we do. And they also are not empathetic on a human level. They have less emotional attachment to even being human, let alone, being good to humans. So this is where we're headed. And now those children have come of age. They're now in their 20s and 30s. Some are even older, some are younger, that kind of thing. So this is really the society that we're going to be living among for the next decades. And I know that Trump and the White Hats are saying, well, we're going to send them all back. How do you send back millions of people? How do you track them all down anyway? You know what I'm saying? In other words, this is a pipe dream. We're going to be in an incredible, I don't know what you want to call. I don't even know what this is. A pogrom, a diaspora. These are old words that used to relate to, wars of the past. We're going to have an exodus. Okay. And I've seen this. Okay. Again, I've seen this in the future in my dreams. Now, you were talking about how, they were late and, so the Earth Alliance or whatever had to rework their situation and such. I have to tell you, that's not the information I had. I got, again, dreams, and they're coming true. My dreams are insane right now that they have been coming true. I never expected this, okay? That's why I never was out there talking about them a lot or any of that. But now I have to talk about this because it's getting ridiculous, okay? I was shown this stuff. I was shown before the Trump went for the 2020 election, I was actually shown what's going to happen when he wins in 2024. I know this is insane. So we are looking at a whole different scenario going forward. And I just want to warn people, because a lot of people are kind of, they keep, when all you do is react, you understand? When you react to something that you think is going to happen or it has happened, and then you react, you're too late. Okay. You are already too late. So that's the position that they were in Maui. They were in Israel, that the Palestinians are in. If you look at this situation of the information we just got, saying that they're planning, the elites and these countries, the top level power people behind the countries, have already made an agreement to create another Suez canal that requires the movement of the Gazians down to the southern part of Gaza and then into Egypt. And what happens with Egypt is, we've been financing their leadership forever. Okay. Now, I don't know how much control they have of Sisi. That's their leader right now. I can tell you that, I think it was it Mubarak? No, not Mubarak. But anyway, the guy before that was there. He was a dictator in Egypt for, like, I don't know, some ridiculous.
That was Mubarak. Yeah, Mubarak.
20 years. I mean,
yeah.
Like, how insane is that? Okay, that and this is known, United States props up dictators around the world, and we prefer dictators. Okay. Now, occasionally ones like Saddam Hussein get too big for their britches, or whatever you want to call it. In his case, he communicated with the Anunnaki coming in through the portals in Iraq under the museum and such. Yep. And he was letting them in, and they knew they had to take him down. Okay. This is what's, nobody gets it. It's because they don't want to talk about the alien incursion into our world. And of course, they don't want to talk about the AI incursion. So it's kind of like we're talking on two different timelines. We're not, they don't connect. People do not see what I'm talking about here. So they're
the reason why they don't want to talk about this, Kerry, is because they are stuck in their own programming of religious dogma. Right. Religious dogma says that stuff doesn't exist. Right. That's crazy stuff. That's new age bullshit, blah, 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 cosmology stuff. That's what and so people believe that. And so people are waiting for their Messiah, their savior. They suffer from the savior complex, not realizing you're your savior. We are the plan. Humans have been the plan. We are the plan. There's a reason why we have guardians of light that have actually been here with us. And I encourage people to go back and watch your interviews that you did. I think it was back in 2010 with Ashiana Dean. Those are remarkable interviews. And I've promoted her PDF books on my channel.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
It's because it's all absolute truth. That's the thing. But the programming won't allow them to go there, because it will, for some, it'll just shatter them. It will just wreck them. And what do you think is going to happen to them?
Let me just address that a little bit on the positive side. Okay. Do you know that every single person here on the earth at this point has been genetically re-engineered, and that we all have different various alien blood in us? Okay. We don't have pure bloodlines. That's bullshit. Anybody who tells you, oh, I'm pure, they're full of shit. Okay. The real pure bloodline, according to the Nazis, is the reptilian one. Okay. So if you want to go around saying you're pure, you're a reptilian, and all said and done. It's not that. Okay. Most people are hybrids. That's what we are, a race of hybrids. Okay. We are a melting pot of races from different parts of the galaxies. And people don't realize that. Now, Ashiana Dean said this many, many years ago. And when she said, the first time she said it, I was like, she's absolutely right. Because I have this sort of, I don't know what you want to call it. I get this hit when I get the truth. Okay. And it's unequivocal. I don't even, it's like you can't, it doesn't even require any questioning or, I still, because I'm an investigator, I'm always investigating both sides and this and that. But I can tell you that it is always on it. Okay. When I get that hit, man, it is right. And I can tell you that she was right on. So, sadly, I don't know why 107 wants to go into this whole biblical nonsense, but what he does is they're the right wing people on the patriot side are always trying to rope in the religious right. So I figure, well, that's his act. That's what he's trying to appeal to. But the stuff he says about our bloodlines is actually wrong. It's not who we are. We are much more complex than that. We have been invaded through the centuries, and in the Ashiana Dean Voyager books, she actually has a whole litany that she's downloaded. She doesn't know this. This is not coming from her. It comes from what are called the guardian races. And they're explaining all the interference that we've had ever since humanity came to this planet, and all humanoid beings actually go back to Lyra and even other places. Okay. So again, these are things that people just don't get, and they get roped into these false ideas and they carry them around with them. And then they're willing to go to war over them, which is even more insane, and kill each other over them. I mean, it's just, that's not what it's about. Okay. It's really, and what she would say about this is that all the races that have gotten involved in our DNA and so on over the years is because these races are actually, it's like we're a grand experiment trying to learn to get along on one planet, so that they can then take that knowledge and expand it throughout the solar systems. And I mean with an S at the end. Okay. So if you take the long view, then you begin, things make sense. They fall into place. It's like incredible, this knowledge. Okay. So I think young people are maybe a little more open to it. I don't know what to do with people that are so locked into their religion. Jesus is going to come back. It's like two football games, and teams, and Jesus is on your side and not on the devil's side, and all this kind of thing. I mean, it's not like that. Okay. And God, again, what's our concept of God, which is talked about over and over in the Bible? God is the Anunnaki. 9 times out of 10, when they say God said this or did this, blah, 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 or especially when they're vindictive, the God is vindictive, Israeli God is very vindictive, takes it out on you, punishes you. I mean, this is not God, okay, of the multiverse, of everything, it's a God. The real God is God of everything. I mean, this goes back to Akhenaten and one God. People are still completely deluded, okay? Thinking there are, if they pray to some God, that God's going to favor them and, give them a brownie point or some bullshit. You have to do your own work. You have to earn your own way through this solar system, all right? You're not given it for free. So freedom is not free. Sorry to say. All right. So this is where we're going with this. Anything else? I don't know how long the show is or anything like that, so I don't want to prolong it. But is there certain?
Usually do an hour and a half. But you're on the right track, because on my platform on Telegram, because I do more shows there than here because I'm so heavily censored here. So on Telegram, I can be very oh shit, what's the word? I can actually be more forthright about certain information that I can't be here, and talking about what we're talking about here to the depth of who we are, where we come from. I ask a lot of my audience that are Christians, I'm like, so in your churches, you're taught, because I'm a former Christian. I was born and raised in the church. I left organized religion 10 years ago and started going on the path of spirituality. And that's when I started discovering absolute truths and how much programming I had within me to get undone. Okay.
Sure.
I would ask them, so religion wants you to believe that all of humankind sprung forth from one man and one woman. We have 34 minimum known identified races on this planet, on the surface of this plane of existence. How can you get 34 different races coming from one man and one woman? You can't quantify that. No matter how hard you try, you can't. And that's the thing. We have a 12-strand DNA construct in us, depending on, and some of us have 24. It just depends on our makeup, which you know about. But we'll go with the 12-strand. So we're taught we have 2 strands. Now we have 10 strands of junk DNA. Well, it's not junk DNA. It's DNA that we have not activated, that we need to activate, that actually allows us to become more of what we were intended to become of our creation itself. So I'm glad that you're going down this path. It's enlightening, because I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the Guardians' participation in the restoration plan and everything that we're seeing happening right now? What is your thoughts? What is your feelings in regards to the Guardians and how they're helping up humanity right now?
Well, like I say, I mean, okay, so what happens is I went on tour of India with Ashana Dean and her group at the time. And I have been a precog most of my life, which has been very helpful to me. Sometimes disappointing, because you get information you don't really want sometimes. But one of the things that came to me, I mean, the minute I got off the bus and just arrived and met some of the people, I knew that her situation was going to break up. And sure enough, it broke up shortly after that. And, you know, she had lawsuits like crazy. So all I can tell you is that I was there. She was sort of on the bus, and we were, you know, how you do tours and you go around on bus. Well, she was waiting for downloads from her guardian contacts to say what we would do each day. As she was waiting, and as she was, before the thing happened, I was getting downloads, okay, from the Guardians as well. So at that time is when I realized I must be getting, you know, be in touch with the Guardians. I must be helped by the Guardians, blah, 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 which kind of makes sense if you know my history. But so what happened is that I start to see that, first of all, it's very important to understand that the guardian races are a group of races, and they're not all humanoid, and that they have come together to safeguard this seeding. It's called a seeding of the planet. And that is exactly what they're doing. Now, these things that we're part of, these conflicts, if you will, have purpose. In other words, the light and the dark under all of God, under the Spirit of God, is actually both worthwhile. Okay, this happens to be a system of polarities here in the Earth dimension. So as you move away from Earth, eventually, you know, you can actually get semi beyond some of the polarities, the really strong polarities that happen here on in the material reality of Earth. So, but understanding that as sort of a basis of what's going on here, it's kind of like this. Have you ever had what you thought was a very negative experience? Maybe it was a breakup in your relationship, or it was, you know, something happened, but you thought it was negative at the time that turned out to be extremely positive for your future. Okay. It's this. So understanding the interplay of light and dark, positive and negative, is really more about learning who we are, what the forces are all about, and how we can benefit just by, you know, having as souls put ourselves in this weird system of polarities. We've done this on purpose. Whether you remember it or not, you have actually come here with a purpose. And so this is instrumental in helping sort of your spiritual, I guess, sort of growth and dimensional nature. So there's nothing wrong with it per se. I think people delude themselves constantly, and this idea that, oh, they're just going to get beyond this and it's all going to be, the golden age and everything's going to be beautiful and Christ is going to come back. First of all, if Christ didn't do a good enough job the first time, there's no fucking way he's coming back to chew it again. Okay. Anybody who thinks that is just insane as far as I'm concerned. Okay. And doesn't really believe or understand who Christ was anyway, because Christ doesn't have to do it again.
Christ as well.
So like,
Right.
Let's go. I mean, to me, some of these things are just, it's like I talk to a kindergarten class. Okay. I can't believe that I still have to go over these things over and over again because people are so locked into their view of reality and they think it works for them and they're going to live and die by those concepts. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And just as the Israelis are living and dying by them now, and it's their leaders who have placed them where they are. They're the same with Gaza and the Hamas and their role there. And also, I just want to say before we close down that Arab countries, if you look at the Suez Canal idea, what it would require is that there is sabotage in the background of those who are supposed to be supporting Hamas but are really using them and know damn well. Correct. That this is a population elimination, a movement of population as well, that to it relocation and so on. So this is really what we're looking at. And I think it behooves every Israeli and every member of Hamas and every member of Gaza to look more carefully and realize that you are being used in a battle that you're not going to win. Okay. There are no winners in this particular battle. Okay. And it will widen to a world war. There's no doubt about it. Now, the last thing I want to address, which I didn't get a chance to really say, but I'll say it really briefly, is that I think a lot of the ideas about where the American military is at are lies. My understanding of the secret space program, and, I can say that, God, what's her name? Whatever, this woman who's like a financial analyst and was the secretary of housing, Catherine Austin Fitz. So I've interviewed her several times, and she wisely has said, she did it like a financial analysis, which is what she does, right? Of what apparently looked like was our military budget and where the money was going and this and that. Believe me, underground in the secret space program, we're colonizing the moons of Saturn and going off planet. We have bases in Mars and the moon, and there's a tremendous amount of money. Money is not even an issue. Okay. So we have the technology. They just don't want, they're doing this law of war or whatever they call that thing. That's Sun Tzu or whoever, you know what I'm saying?
Who's Art of War.
Yeah, yes. The art of war. That's, you always try to, project yourself as weak militarily so that you can surprise your enemy at the last moment. Come on, it's bullshit. Okay. I'm sorry. You can believe what you want. I know what I've heard all over the many years that I've been doing it, which is close to 20 years at this point. And I can tell you everything I know, that is complete and utter nonsense. Okay. We are not. Now, the surface military is another matter because we have a split. We have a split right in every single group of the military. So we have split in Army, we have split in Navy, we have split in, you name it. Space Force is more aligned because it's under Trump. So, but we may have sabotage within that. And there may be members of the White Hats that are actually overtly sabotaging still to this day. But sometimes they play a role to be act like a saboteur to capture what, in essence, it's like fly paper, whatever. They call it, in other words, they act like they're much, they're on the bad side, but they're not actually. They're doing this for the white hats so that they can attract, anyway, it's one of the games they play. So, you really have to understand spycraft to understand the white hats. Otherwise, you're going to be lost all the time.
You are. Well, and one thing I also want to touch back and go back on is the 2024 election. All right. So you saw in a dream that it's going to happen, Trump's going to win. That would mean there's got to be a series of events that must take place in order for that to even happen. First of all, Biden has to be gone. That whole power structure has to be gone, right? Because once we go into conflict, Biden's already sent the War Powers Act to Congress to sign off on it. And once we do that, he can suspend the Constitution, he can suspend elections, he can do whatever he wants when we're in war, which means we wouldn't have an election going
I know, but I have to tell you something about that. I think that the white hats, look, they're not stupid, okay? They knew we were going to go into this war. If I knew it, they knew it.
Absolutely.
I give them a little credit in that regard, and their AI, by the way. So they had to be able, as you say, using Project Looking Glass, which I'm very familiar. If anything, Camelot broke the story, like through Dan Burish all those years ago. So, that's not news to me. But I can tell you that what we have found out since then is in the etheric, AI can be influenced. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're telling you the truth or the whole truth, right? And it can also be influenced to go one way or another from time to time. So it's kind of a moving target. And that goes for the individuals who are involved here too. But, it's looking into the future. Look, Juan has said, okay, you're going to have a near-death experience to do, just like the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, how did he know that unless the AI told him, right? He doesn't pretend to be a precog like I do, right? So what I'm trying to say is that damn right that they know they've got certain kind of milestones to click off before these things are going to go on, and they can be interfered with. They could be taken. Even the timelines I see could be changed. However, they seem to be playing out the way I'm seeing them at the moment. So for what it's worth, okay, how that's going to happen, how it's going to play out, I don't know. I don't even know if it was really winning an election so much as him getting into position, which he's already in. He's already our president, but in a public way, Biden having to step down and so. So I think we're in for a rough ride. I think it's going to be a rocky ride. But I also think it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm kind of galvanized by what's going on now because these lies are hitting the fan, okay? They are hitting the fan every single day. And we're getting more and more uncovered as we get into these things. And the sides that people are taking, they're being exposed, okay? If you're naive, if you're stupid, if you make bad decisions, it's all getting exposed on the what we call the microcosm as well as the macrocosm. So I think that it's worthwhile to approach this time we're in a completely different attitude than the one you've had in the past. I think that's very important. And that would be a whole nother show. So.
Oh, yeah, let's do that because that's what I'm actually trying to condition my listeners to do the same thing. Not to give into the fear because this is all part of the plan. 2 months ago, somebody had asked me in a Q&A on my show, well, what do you see happening, by the end of the year? And I said, well, the next 3 months, the last 3 months of the year will be spectacular. I didn't say it'd be good spectacular. I just said they'll be spectacular going into 24. And I said, we have some things we need to get through in order to prevail. Here's what I see happening. I see, before we go full on kinetic over there, because you have to remember, in the military, these are plans that have been in place for a long time because you cannot move the amount of equipment and personnel that we have over a 2-week period since the attack took place into that region. It takes months and months to be able to do that, to stage and get ready to go kinetic like that. So it tells us that this was deep in the planning a long time ago. I also know that within days, not weeks or months, but within days previous to this attack, that there was going to be a civil war taking place because they hate Netanyahu over there. There were hundreds and hundreds of thousands of protesters protesting because every person in Israel was forced, vaccinated, and boosted up the wazoo. Did you know that in Israel, none of your DNA companies like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, they're not allowed there. You are not allowed to have DNA testing done from any external companies in Israel. There's a reason for that. There's an absolute reason for that. So what I see happening is we're going to go kinetic only to a certain degree. I believe
Sorry.
it can either be divine intervention. No, you're fine. You're fine, dear. I believe through divine intervention, and you can think whatever that is, but I believe through divine intervention, he is going to be removed. He is going to be taken out before it gets too far. He'll be taken out and eliminated so that some voice of reasoning can come into play here before it gets to an all out where we're exchanging nuclear warheads. Now, granted, we know that the nuclears have been taken out, but we do have the rods of God. We have all these other new weaponry systems that are just as diabolical as nuclear weapons are.
Right.
So I think before we get to that level, I believe some type of intervention is going to happen where he will be taken out of that sequence and calmer heads will prevail. That's what I believe is going to happen. And I'm going to tell you why I believe this. So my intel is telling me that they were going to stage this event, they being the Zionists, were going to stage this event on September 3rd. But I call them Biden and the puppet masters told Netanyahu, no, we're not ready to do that yet. We're not in position to help facilitate and support you guys if you do that. You need to push this out till October, and we want this to go full on by the end of October. So the Zionists rescheduled their planned attack for Sunday, the 8th. Hamas, there was a leak inside all the highest levels within the Israeli government. There was a leak to Hamas, because you guys have to remember, the Mossad created Hamas. Israel created Hamas. It's a puppet of the Israeli government, of Mossad. It's not a private standing terrorist organization. It's funded by Israel, because they always have to have a constant perpetual enemy, so they're always engaged in some kind of conflict to get the world's sympathy all the time, right? So they had a plan where they were going to launch their attack on October 8th. Hamas got leaked information, so they preemptively strike them on October 7th instead, hoping that it would derail what they were planning on doing. Of course, it didn't. It didn't. That tells me that there are individuals high enough up the ladder connected to Netanyahu that are willing to take him out, to eliminate him. Because even as crazy as these Kabbalists are, these bloodthirsty Satanists and their puppet masters, the Anunnaki and these other negative aliens, I still believe the White Hats are in charge enough with the Earth Alliance to control things before it gets too out of balance. I believe that's what I feel, anyways.
Okay, well, that's an interesting idea. Not according to my information. Okay, that's not what's going to happen. But it's believable that Netanyahu will be taken out, because I think part of this whole scenario was geared to do just that. And I have an Israeli friend, and she had told me, she'd showed me the demonstrations going on before any of this happened. And the people were over him because he had been trying to change their laws and do all kinds of, New World Order stuff that they're totally not on board with. And he was also trying to escape some legalities that he's gone up against. So there is reason to believe that although temporarily he's kind of a placeholder, I would say, I do believe that they are going to have a change. However, I think the last thing we're going to get is cooler minds to prevail at this time, based also on this new piece of information having to do with this plan to create another Suez Canal, which is got to have these Arab countries on board for it to even happen. And using the present day technology, they could actually create this canal in quite a record time if they get the people out of the area, which they seem to be able to do at this time because they're doing it through war and under cover of war. Now, I don't know how this is going to play out. I haven't had any specific dreams about that, so I'm not trying to say that. All I'm saying is that, at least according to what I've seen, what we are experiencing this year is going to continue and possibly get worse. And that this, whatever you want to call this, near-death experience. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't happened yet. Okay. Maybe it's never going to happen for someone like me because I, have been told too much, so.
Well, you're awakened at a consciousness level. You're well awakened, just like I am. So
Right.
it's not.
But you know what I mean? You don't get shocked. You don't go through a near-death, life-death, experience. I don't, I can only imagine it's some kind of nuclear standoff. But by the way, of course, nukes are actually old school. And this also wraps into Putin and what his relationship really is behind the scene with Xi and with Trump. And, whether these guys really are enemies behind the scenes, which is unlikely. Okay. Which means that they're playing certain roles to move the timeline in a certain direction with a purpose in mind. How that's going to all play out, whether it's going to, roll out the way they want it to, or whether there's going to be some X factor, let's say, that the Illuminati come up with, because you got to remember, you're fighting an enemy that has been the enemy of humanity going back for eons. And they're not stupid and they're not deceived by little games and all this nonsense. So, I'm not trying to give them a ton of credit here, but I think you need to be aware of who your enemy is. I think that's really of paramount importance right now. And your enemy, by the way, for anybody Israeli or Palestinian or, Hamas or whatever, they are not your enemy. Okay. They are pawns in a game of the super elite. And the sooner they realize that and wake up and basically get along with the people around them and stop doing the bidding of their elitist masters, the sooner all of this will unwind. Okay. But until that happens, I think we're in for some pretty diabolical happenings. And I'm not even sure how crazy it's going to get. I mean, I can tell you, and this is the last thing I want to say, and I really do need to go. And I'm very sorry. My phone was way downstairs. I just moved here. Obviously, I'm completely discombobulated, but
all good.
I have to say that we are in a situation where when you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you need to keep an open mind. And I think that predicting at this point is a little sort of naive. I think watching predictive programming, on the other hand, is extremely important. And that some of these decisions are made without either side. In other words, there's a level above them. We're talking about the Anunnaki. We're talking about maybe a level above them as well, where these decisions actually get made. Okay. And then it comes down through the layers. So that's a very hard thing to predict. It's also going to be a learning experience for both sides, as it already is. And, you know, and there's a lot more exposure to have to happen. So I don't know. I think it's better to keep a really open mind and not to think that we are going to know. Now, obviously, you have, you got your sources and you want to say what you have, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But I'm just cautioning to people in general, saying that right now this game is not being played on the lower levels. Okay, the lower levels, sadly, are the recipients. They are the, if you want to call them victims, fine. I don't go by the victim mentality. I tend to think that we elected to come here. We elected to be part of this on some level. Whatever your level is your learning level. Okay, that's the level in which you decided to engage, and keep an eye on that stuff. Okay, if you're getting a lot of blowback, if you're getting a lot of negativity, if you're getting wrapped up in all kinds of craziness, you've chosen that. All right, that's where your learning is going to take place. So you should embrace it, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Well, we'll end it there, dear. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'd love to do another follow-up with you,
Okay,
because
sure.
I think we're going to have some very interesting, like I said, it's not going to be boring. It's not going to be boring. I can guarantee that.
Right.
So thank you for your time again, Kerry. Hopefully you get moved in, get
Okay,
all
thank you.
situated up.
Yeah.
We'll stay in contact. All right.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
Thank,
Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.
thank you, guys. Have a blessed evening, everybody.